Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get this this party started. Hi, I am Stephen Mitchell. I am an engineer here in the Western New York area, and happily so. Been doing this for about 13 years, but I got my start in tech in the 4th grade, checking out the old Commodore 64 and Oregon Trail 2, I think it was. I was like, hey man, like, these computers are going somewhere. So I followed my dream right into pulling out all of the token ring wire out of my school, which, and I'm talking, this is the old 16 gauge wire, 4-wire setup. That was fun, and just kept, it's been an uphill journey ever since, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I really am pleased with the community that we're starting to build here, and I want to give another big shout out and thanks to Mr. Matthew Gracie. To this guy, he's carrying it on his back, and I'm a little disappointed he didn't bring the cape that we got him last year to wear around, because he is our superhero. So I really do enjoy in sharing my experiences, which is the primary driver for this talk today. With that said, welcome to my talk on security data infrastructure. And this is how I learned to stop worrying and learn to love my data. This talk's for everybody, that's fine. So what do I mean by security data infrastructure? And this quote really isn't hard-hitting or all that unique, but it's adding a layer into your security data pipeline, or the way you pull data into your security tools to fulfill all the use cases you have for your data. All right, and when I mean by security data, I mean your firewall logs, your Active Directory logs, all of the items that you have that you need to get to your tools and possibly keep for a long time. And what I mean by event stream processing tools are effectively ETL tools. So these are your extract, transform, and load tools to pull data in and kind of play with the data before you send it out to your destinations, no matter what the format it is coming in and no matter what the format is going out. And generally speaking, I think, in my experience, and which is the me telling my story today, is in my experience it's just been, I had my producers of data and I had where it needed to go, and I just connected the two together, and that was it. The problem then there became more and more destinations. I had more places to send my data, and I had a need for historical data. And the ability to put that into other tools because we were testing some new hotness. And this talked my journey on finding a tool that could really do that for me, and how excited I got over the last 6 months about it. So I figured I'd make a talk and share it with everybody. So how am I going to convey this without completely losing you? This last 6 months has been a drug-fueled fever dream for me. So I'm going to try to keep this as organized as possible, because I am not. I'm going to tell you how I got here. We're going to just recap the problem statements, because I'd like to be clear and concise, because otherwise I'll just meander off into nowhere. I'm going to talk about finding the tool I found and how it would have solved my problem. I'm going to show what else this thing could do, and hopefully try to engender that, kind of plant the seed in your head, like, hey, maybe I have this problem and I can use tools like this to help me out. And then we'll kind of talk briefly about some of the other tools that we can help you on your journey, because there's not just one solution. Story time. Some people in the room may be familiar with this story. So back in 2016, I got hired at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York. Lovely people, very handsome. And we were using IBM's QRadar for our SIEM. And I didn't get a chance to work with it very much, but we had all the bells and whistles, the alerts, logs, network traces, everything was going to this wonderful, massive tool. And even though we had it all in there, had it all ready to go, it wasn't great. It didn't satisfy our needs properly. So either it was slow, had too much junk data in it, it wasn't a cohesive product altogether, because you had to reach out and you're doing a network trace. Okay, let's get the network trace for this particular event, and it didn't quite work. Or, maybe we just didn't know how to use it. I don't know what our problem was. I don't want to remember, because we're moving on. Here's what did matter. We decided to stop paying the bill. So it was time to move out, so we had to think about what was next. So we all sat down, got into a what are we going to do now meeting, and some really hard questions got asked. How are we going to maintain the data that we have right now? All right, because we have some regulatory needs to keep the data for a set amount of time. We have to keep our identity and access management logs for X number of years. We have to maintain not so much the network traces, but and then maybe our SIEM data, just in case we have to look back. If somebody says, 2 months from now after we put in the new tool, what about that, we found out that Joe in accounting got a phishing email and it got a lot worse than it was. So we would have to look back. So we kind of needed some of that stuff, and how we have an audit to satisfy. How are we going to pull these logs out of this tool? If we move to a new tool and we shut down the old one, how are we going to get the logs for the next audit? Can we pull the data out of this tool? Can we stick it in S3 and kind of get it into, another format so we can actually use it later? So we asked IBM, hey, can we do these things? Nope. Your data's stuck in this tool. So what do you mean? No, we really need this data. So okay, so we have to now live with this tool. My data inside of it. So do we keep this thing running for a year? How does that work with licensing? What are we going to do? We turned out we were locked into the system. We had to get a special license to ensure this thing would keep going. And we set it aside and look forward to the future, to our new tool. And we marched towards our new SIEM, which was exorbitant. Yes! Security analytics, all right, but we're going to start from zero. All the machine learning, all the wonderfulness in this new wonderful tool, we're going to take months to build up. And we're going to have to shift all of our data providers to point into this tool. And we're just going to have to wait and hope that everything's going to be wonderful. So in this particular setup, very similar to QRadar, had a hedge unit, had a big, giant a cluster of database systems, had another machine to do some analytics, and had another tool that was able to act as an ingest point to get all the data into the tool. So whole bunch of boxes standing up and Amazon, let's just pay all this money for this virtual iron. Here we go. And now we get a data lake, we get UEBA, we get data ingestion made easy. This is going to be fantastic. We're excited about it. So we get everything set up, we ported our logs at it, and we did wait. After about a year and a half, we had a UEBA. Turns out the data lake was fantastic at storing data, but really wasn't good at building SIEM rules because it wasn't a SIEM. There's another product for that. And so after a year and a half, we're like, this stinks. Now what? Okay, we learned from our lessons last time. So we hold another what are we going to do now meeting. We're going to make this happen. We sit down. We're going to maintain. We're going to have we're going to have all our data. Hey, XB, we need to pull this data out and get it into a format so we can have it for our audits later. And they said, no. Okay. So we can't migrate to the next system. Can't take any of the data that we put in there and move it to the next box. RIP. Oh boy. So I got put on the next iteration of this, and we're going to move out to a new tool. Here we go again, and we moved into Azure Sentinel. All right, and we're going to start again from 0. So we're going to have to build now we're going to have to build detections, actual detections this time, and get repoint all of our data into this SIEM. Get it all set up and report all the persons. Bingo, we're in business. And now we pay Microsoft for ingestion costs, which was a new concept for me at the time. I had not had the pleasure of working with Splunk or products like it, and this is very much in that vein. I didn't even know we had 200 gigabytes worth of logs coming in. So thankfully the Microsoft 365 logs were free, so that's super cool. But that's a lot, and we set it up, and we were seeing 200 gigs a day, and I'm like, wow, that's a sizable amount of money. The good news, we had retention now. We had the ability to take long-term and separate from the tool. I was able to set up a kick out to Azure Blob storage. And so I was, after 90 days of living in the tool, the data would just gracefully pass on to the next life in storage. And we would be able to create our own data lake in object storage. So if we wanted to go back in time, conceivably we could pull that data back out, put it into the tool, and be able to work our query magic on it. Sweet. I mean, there's a whole bunch of logs that probably aren't necessary for SIEM purposes, like all of those Palo Alto allow logs that are super chatty, especially with all those internal communications. And I probably should take a look at that, see if we can't tweak the tool, turn off the logs, and how do I do that? I don't know. Never found out. I got put on another project and left the company half a year later. RIP. That's a lame story, I've said to myself. Has anybody else experienced something like this? Switching tools. I love you guys, but you don't count. You absolutely count, and it was frustrating to me, and I would sit long nights just sitting up in bed thinking, how could I have made this better? All my data was trapped in vendor tools. We're taking in more data than we needed to. Come to find out, SIEM solutions are expensive, and we had to fiddle futz with our tools every time we had to change. That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Another thing, we couldn't query our data long term. We couldn't take a snapshot over a matter of years and ask ourselves, what is normal for us? What happened on July the 16th, 2017? I couldn't tell you. We were putting our data into proprietary tools, and the data was locked there. So essentially our data wasn't ours anymore. I was giving it away to somebody else, just like I do with my cell phone and my entire personal life to Google. Thank you, Google. And what could I have done? How would I make this better? So I would then have these feverish nightmares and see charts in my head because I had a very wonderful architect that made really great charts, so I tried to emulate him. So how would I have done this? How would I make this happen? I mean, ideally, I'd be able to take my data in from all of my sources. Bonus points for anybody who gets movie references buried in the text here. That might be hard to see. How would I take the data in, parse it, get rid of the stuff I don't want, reduce the size if I can, like the Windows event logs, or the XML logs are doubled up. They have double duty in them. So how can I shrink that up so just the vital data gets to my SIEM? Again, the Palo Alto logs I was using had a whole bunch of superfluous nonsense in it that nobody's ever going to use in a SIEM ever. How do I get rid of that stuff before it gets to my SIEM so I'm not paying that money for the ingest costs? I mean, and I have to be able to take it in from everywhere. I've got stuff in Johannesburg, South Africa. I've got stuff in Black Mesa, New Mexico. And all my cloud and SaaS tools. How do I hit those APIs, especially for the SaaS tools, on a consistent basis and pull that data in and have a tool to manage that for me? Thankfully, Lambda can do that. But how do I then work on that data as it goes through? And then how do I get that to send that out to my SIEM? And then how do I send it out to cloud storage too? Because I'll want to keep in object storage an extended period of data and build my own data lake that I can query with Amazon Athena or some other tool that can rip right through all the files and pull the data out to me and present it. And also, how do I then get that data out of cloud storage and stick it into that new hot tool we're testing? I mean, even my time at Blue Cross Blue Shield, we tested like 5 or 6 new tools, and it would have been absolutely amazing to be able to take all the data we had for certain things, endpoint data, firewall data, and then just take a year's worth and say, here you go, and dump it all right back in. And then the tool is immediately effective. You let the reactor come online and the heat sink glow red, so it does all the machine learning magic. But immediately to go from 0 to effective in no time at all, and satisfy the requirements that I have today. Got to be received and shipped. I got to pull data from everywhere, and also, very importantly, keep costs as low as possible, particularly when with ingestions to the SIEM, and also going to cloud storage. If I can compress the data before shipping it off to cloud storage, winning. How do I make all of this work and also make sure the system stays running and is fault tolerant and is hooked up to the monitoring team? Because I don't want to be waking up at 3 a.m. I just want it to reboot and just heal itself because I'm lazy. How do I make all this happen? And I started trying to find solutions, talk this thing out, and by the time I had gotten to the end of it, I had no answers, and I looked like Charlie from Sunny. And everybody was looking at me like, "Are you okay, Steve? I mean, I know you're not okay normally, but are you okay? Are you no?" So I don't have a whole dev team at my command, and I know the problems that I'm experiencing aren't unique. So there has to be a solution out there for me to take care of this. And by the time I was able to look at it, I had moved on to the next life, and I had all of this unfinished business, and I was waiting for Jennifer Love Hewitt to come save my soul and set me free. And I waited, and about a year and a half later, the solution came. Jennifer Love Hewitt appeared to me and said, "Yo, check this out." I'm like, "Oh, what's this?" I'm at the Rochester Security Summit, and I see this tool called Cribble. And I'm like, oh, this is terribly interesting. What's going on here? I'll tell you what's going on here. Cribble is a tool that you stick in front of your deliverables, your destinations, and you send all your data to it. No matter what format it is, doesn't matter. Stream then chews that up, filters it, modifies the event data as it comes through, and has the ability to dynamically route all of your data to where it needs to go. Also can create metrics out of that data as it comes through. All at wire speed, sending it right through to any destination that you see that they support. But it's a lot. More specifically, the tool takes in data and uses the concept of security data pipelining, or data pipelining, or observability pipelining. It is technically an observability tool coming out of that space. And you got your sources. You can pre-parse them, maybe normalize them before putting them into the tool. The tool has a concept of routes that says, hey, I got some data coming in. If it matches this particular, JavaScript string or a filter, hey, if it's firewall logs, if it's Windows logs, send it to this pipeline over here. If it's Azure AD logs, send it to that pipeline over there. And it does a ordered list of routes and sends that data, and chews all the data up as you prescribe and sends that out to your destinations. And truly, I mean, your data, all your data infrastructure is a series of tubes. Thank you, Senator Ted Stevens. Nailed it. How would this tool have looked had I found it and got it stood up? Well, in my case, back at Blue Cross Blue Shield, I would have said, hey, listen, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I want to reduce and slim down before I send it to my SIEM. So I have some routes at the top there. I then have some matching routes that say, hey, listen, I want the raw logs that I can use later. I want to send them to my data lake up in S3. Okay, sweet. I've got an audit log that I really don't need in my SIEM. Maybe I don't have a use case for it in my SIEM at this time, but I kind of want to keep it for later, just in case I do. I'm going to send that to S3. And then I'll build out, later I'll show a replay where I can take data out of S3, time-based, and send it to a new tool. In my case, I didn't have to. I don't have a route for sending Office 365 logs to Sentinel because that was free. Winning. So you don't have to use it forever. Let's take a look at more technically what this looks like. You have our list of routes, and today we're going to be focusing on the two in the middle, and I have a little bit of zooming action here, if I can find the mouse to kind of help out. We're going to talk about sending data raw to S3, and then sending it to the SIEM as well. And we're going to just stick with the Palo Alto model to kind of focus in. This is the kind of the look for the routes. It's a little low contrast, I apologize. But again, in an ordered list, you set filters. You say, hey, I want this data that looks like this, and send it to these pipelines. And these pipelines then send them off to this particular destination. Here we have my SIEM, syslog. Here we have an S3 bucket. We're going to send all that stuff through. Now I have what you see here at the top is a pass-through pipeline. That means do nothing. Don't touch it. Just pack it up and ship it. And I have pipelines, which are an ordered list of functions that then masticate the data and do what it needs to do and then ships it off to a destination. And then I have a collection of pipelines called a pack. Hey, Palo Altos are complex data. There's a lot of different data types within Palo Alto Log, so I need to get a little more fiddly with it and have a set of routes for Palo Alto data that then sends the data off to my syslog. What does an S3 destination look like? Well, it's actually quite lovely. You give the name of the bucket, you give a key prefix, so this will be the first path and the first step in the key when you want to go pull it back out, so you know where to find it in your S3 bucket. And you set what I think was really neat is a partitioning expression, which was new for me. You set a dynamic path based on, and here I have it set based on time. I just said, listen, give me the year, month, day, hour, minute that these logs were pulled in from, and I want you to just make a folder path on that, and then send the data there. You can get really fiddly with this. Let's say you have multiple firewalls. You can say, hey, depending on what the source is, create another folder. You can do this for if you have a small environment and don't have any cardinality issues. And I learned the term cardinality. I won't explain it here because for me it's very complex math and everybody's nose are going to bleed. You can do host name, maybe it's endpoints. You want to know what happened on a specific host, and you can pull that data out of your S3 bucket just for those hosts. You want to get very specific when you're querying data back out. And here I'm setting up that environment later, that data lake later, where I can then pull data back out specifically with a query. And then the most important part, the one that's going to save us money, compress it with gzip before you send it. Awesome. I'm excited. We also have back pressure behavior. Just in case the destination gets a little wonky, the tool can kind of hang on to the data for you before it gets sent. So very nice. So you're not losing any data on the fly. We're going to take a quick look here at the Palo Alto stuff. So I said this is all ordered lists. Of course, if a rule matches, it sends the data out, and that stops. That's it. It's over. Unless I set the final flag. So I can work on data more than once, which is very convenient. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass Palo Alto Logs data this route here, and it's going to flow then to the next route right below it, where we will then finish working with the data and drop those events as they come through. So again, this is just one of my use cases we're going to go through. We're going to check this out. Here is a list, or this is a pack, which is another set of routes. And for each specific pipeline, because I want to handle each part of the Palo Alto log, or each type of Palo Alto log differently, the traffic, threat logs, the system logs. I want to treat all these differently. So I have different pipelines for each because it's different data, and I'll need, and they're formatted differently. So I'll need separate pipelines for those. I'm going to take you through one of these pipelines to kind of give you an idea of what's possible, and that is the traffic log. So, a pipeline is a collection of functions in an ordered list, and step by step, you work with the JSON object, the JSON event data that you have. This allows you to, everything behind Cribble is JavaScript, so I'm just thinking JavaScript. If not, just follow along. You're able to work with each of these fields, and there is a dancing plethora of functions to do stuff with. So many Legos to play with. It's very exciting. The first here is the eval statement that pulls out a host name. Let me zoom in here, give you a little bit better look at it. It pulls out a host name from, and this use case is also assuming that we're working with Splunk, because Cribble and Splunk have always kind of going together, maybe a little too close. So we're going to want to build kind of like a Splunk formatted message. So I'm going to pull the host name out of the raw field. These were pulled in via syslog. So everything is first in the JSON object. The entire message is in raw, and then Cribble automatically pulls out all of the syslog items into the message. Since my syslog data may be forwarded from like syslog ng, the host name may not be correct, so I would have to correct that. So here I pull the proper host out of the raw data and stick it in the host field. I also take the date time out of the syslog message because I'm going to be sending it again, and I'll just want to pull that out. I want that in the syslog message later, and then I set some other fields conditionally to get it set up for Splunk. Next, I take what's in the raw field and I parse it out and create my canvas. I pull all of the data out of the raw field and I put them in the root as JSON fields. And now they're all nice and easily worked with. And I can do that because I know what a Palo Alto log looks like. So I'm able to set a list of fields in order that this CSV is going to be listed in. So I give the order of the fields, and it pulls those all out, named for me, ready to rock. And it pulls the data out no matter whether the field has value or not. So there might be a couple of spots here where there isn't any data at all, and it will still pull those out and make the field null for me to play with. Wonderful. We do some other stuff in the eval that are too boring, and stuff in the functions here that are too boring to talk about. But we get to auto timestamp. This is super neat. I can say, hey, look in the raw field, or the field generated time, which is down here. Look at this date, which is in kind of a full format. I want this in a Splunk format, which is Unix time. So give me this in epoch, and I can say with a little stirp time, I can use this Python library that they use to give the format that the time is in, and it produces for me epoch time. Auto magical. I like auto magic. Gets me home on time for dinner. Now we enter a little bit of danger zone because I start sampling logs. I have had limited experience, and what experience I do have is questionable into sampling. Sampling is the ability to collect 1 out of X number of events. So instead of 10 of the same 2 kilobyte log, I can just collect 1, and it'll keep doing that as they come through. So let's say I got a really chatty rule. Let's say I've got a CISO that's always hooked up to his personal access database on the network chair somewhere, and it's always allow, and he's using it all day, and I just don't want to collect those logs. So we're just gonna sample those. So I can, based on a filter, I can say, hey, for this particular function, if the rule is Splunk, I want you to look for where bytes in is 0 and action is allow, and I want you to sample that at a rate of 5. Give me that at 20%. Shrinking all that down, reducing my cost. So only 1 out of 5 gets sent to the SIEM, and you get a cool little sample field that says, hey, I sampled it 5 times. That way, for your network folks would be like, oh man, how hard is the CISO hitting the access database today? They'll be able to count that still. Let's say we're doing some other boring stuff, and then we're going to do some cleanup. Now we're going to prepare this message to transmit out. So I say, hey, I've done all this work on these fields. I've cleaned up. I want to clean up everything I don't need. So I say, hey, remove all of these fields I'm not going to use. Just get rid of them. Bye. I want them out. And then I want you to serialize all that data back into raw. What I have here is all the data that I need, and a whole bunch of stuff I don't is gone. And this is the data that gets sent to the SIEM. Nice, clean, efficient. How much space did we save with this very rapid exercise, hour-long exercise? We took, 1 3/4 kilobyte log, made it less than a K, reducing it by 55%. So all of my Palo logs. Of course, it's a small sample size. You really want to do a large sample size to get better data, and they have a monitoring tab that kind of shows you, over time how much you're saving. But just for traffic logs, I'm shrinking them down by 50%. That's pretty dope. I'm kicking out 100 gigs a day. I'm shrinking it down to 50. That's awesome. And that isn't then compounded by anything I get sampled, which again, as your legal counsel, make sure you do that sparingly and with very well-defined use cases. You don't want to lose fidelity. But then I'm just not sending logs that I don't need. Anybody have a SIEM that they pay per ingestion? 1, 2, okay, 3, yes, 4, 5. Yeah, I mean, does anybody want to reduce the amount of the space of logs that are going by 50%? Yeah. I mean, obviously, there are some use cases where you're going to get 10, 20. That's fine. Some are super huge, depending on the log that you're kicking out. So again, your mileage may vary, but being able to reduce the ingestion cost is super dope. So we're going to do a quick scene change since we're running low on time. So we talked about the everyday. We're going to talk about that new hot POC we're doing. Let's say we got a whole bunch of WinLogBeat data that we want to pull in. I set up my collector. So this is going to be a collector job that's going to hit the S3 API and pull back all the data I want based on a time frame. And I just give it with a little bit of JSON, a little bit of JavaScript magic, declare how the folder path looks, and then say, hey, based on the time that I give, years here, months here, days here, and such. And then you would also include, if you did anything else, you'd include your machine names or your hosts or your whatever else you use to carve that up, regions. And also do a little recursion just because, thanks Mike, you're messy. So we then get a cute little screen that I can run a preview, give it a time. I could say, hey, give me the last 12 minutes. Give me the last 12 minutes of this data. Give me the last year. For a preview, I'd want like the last, 15 minutes, so I can then make sure that the format comes in correctly. And it gives you a nice little preview screen. But then when you're ready to go, you just say, hey, give me the last year. And play it into the new tool. You do have to create like I had in the beginning, you do have to create a route in your table that matches this and says, hey, listen, if you see Steve run his, Steve collect his personal WinLogBeat stuff, capture that and send it to the new tool, which again, for me, my test purposes, was just S3. But just pull that data out and ship it. You can also transform it as it goes through, just like any other route, just in case you need to prepare it a certain way for that new tool. The whole process takes like 15 minutes. Super awesome. So I did this at home. And I grabbed all my WinLogBeat data, and because I wanted to play with WinLogBeat, and I shipped it up to S3. So I said, okay, now I have this data lake of stuff. How do I then query it out? I also played with Cribble's new tool, Cribble Search. It's the exact same thing, except it pulls in the data and then is able to visualize it for you based on your KQL that you have here. So I said, all right, let me take a look. I'm seeing all this data come through. I want to know how much of this data is duplicated. Is there something that's super chatty that's, give me all these win logs. So I took a look. I said, hey, give me a query, give me, let me check Sysmon, what's Sysmon saying? And give me stuff where I want the win log, I want the data, I want the image. What's the file that's, giving the most logs where a count is greater than 50 for the time period I'm querying? Let me go back here. And then give me an order set. So I got this data back, and it says, hey, listen, you've got nothing, 391 logs, and you have this massive one. Service out. Oh, great. Okay. 349 logs for the very small period of time that you're looking at. Okay. Well, what's doing that? I took a look at the technique. Well, what's the technique it's doing? I made a query, and it says, hey, it's doing service creation over and over and over again. Out of the 1,000 logs I pulled out for you, Steve, 940 of them are service creation. What the hell is doing that? Windows image access? What is this? What? So the Windows scanner service is repeatedly creating a service. Huh. Weird. But I was able to find that in just a few minutes, just like working with any other SIEM. Able to query it right out, and the queries take seconds, 7 seconds for this one, to pull all the data in and show and present it to you. I was like, that's weird and silly, and I probably should try to fix that. Maybe I'll Google it sometime when I have time, when I'm not paying attention to my wife and 3 kids. But it was just that easy. I loved it. Had I had this earlier, I would have been so happy and wonderful. But now I'm able to share this with you and be happy and wonderful. What else can this thing do? Output routers do dynamic destinations. So if you've got regions, let's say for your S3, you want to keep regions local and use the same rule set. You can say, hey, as the log comes in, what region am I in? Where is this log coming from? And send it to that local region. You can do lookups just like you can with your up in your SIEM, and enrich the data as it flows through. Should you have the need. One of the really neat things that I liked that I know can be kind of a holdup for people not giving up their logs, data masking. I can go in and make sure any sensitive data is redacted out of the log before I ship it. I can ship it anyway. So, yeah, now I can just make the auditors go away. Goodbye. We can, the collectors part is really neat, but it's very necessary. Can do webhooks. It's kind of become like a pre-alerting system if you don't have one. So you can send events to stuff, and then do your metrics if you're into that sort of thing. Building metrics in real time. Let's say you're doing application traces. You can start building metrics out of that if your apps aren't sending that. It does a lot of really neat things, but it's not the only thing that can do these things. And even though this seems like a sales pitch, this was just my torrid love affair that I just had over the last 6 months. So I thank you for following me through this. We got one of the neat little tools that I noticed that had come up was log slash. This is a series of scripts this dude wrote. He's got a pack for vector, which is another observability pipelining tool, and this does time window sampling. So I can say for each minute or each 10 seconds, sample the logs and reduce them. So you know for each 10-second period that this one network, they're doing firewall logs again because it's usually very chatty with the allow logs, to reduce those, right, and usually placing those right at the source or in your vector or in Cribble. Fluentbit, Logstash, Apache NiFi, very tried and true tools that do this as well in some capacities. Not all, but I mean, Fluentbit seems to be the OG, so I imagine they do it quite well. And then, hey, if you've got that kind of affliction, you go ahead and bring your own elbow grease and do it all in Python. Go right ahead. And my soul is now at rest. I can, if I ever come up with a situation again where I've got to send my logs to S3 in my SIEM and reduce the cost, get rid of all the superfluous stuff that maybe I can't configure out of my tools, and reduce the logs I even ship, and I can pull the data out of my data lake and play it back into a new tool to test it out. I can do it. And again, what do I do now? I'm kind of standing out here in the iceberg, of my, first quarter 2023. And I have everything just to learn more about observability. I just wanted to share today, again, this journey I've just been on for the last 6 months, and I just had to share it. And anybody who doesn't have this problem, I will see you at the bar, because then we can, we'll let people that do have the problem go, oh, I can finally do this, and then they'll come to the bar and we can all party and hang out and have a soda. And that is that. Let's chat. Thank you very much. We got 2 minutes left. Questions, comments, concerns, regrets? Yes?
I'll just add on to this, because we're also a Cribble user. We've been using this for integrations with some of our other threat intelligence feeds as well. So other items that we've had is we've got like known benign addresses or known scanners. We've been using this for tagging our scanners so that we can basically have all that information already in there to simplify our analysis.
So pulling it right in, tagging it as soon as it comes in, right out the SIM, so you know, hey, it's cool, chill out. And you got your rules tuned to ignore those things. I love it. That's super. I've seen this used also at security providers, managed security providers, when they're taking a lot of customer data and they got to work with a lot of it. So it is a larger scale data problem. But hey, anybody else? All right. And with that, I thank you so very much for this opportunity. Take it easy.